Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And this is Tony Paradell from Worldline. I'm the coordinator of the Bloomen project. Bloomen is a project which is co-funded by the European Union under the Horizon 2020 work program. And it's a project devoted to the use of the blockchain technology applied to the media sector. Since we are coming close to the end of the project, we are organizing this Bloomen Week, which is a series of different webinars devoted to different particular use cases. Yesterday, we had a webinar devoted to photos, and today we are going to have this webinar devoted to the music. So I hope that you will enjoy it. I want now, the moderator of this webinar today is going to be Gonçal Calvo from BMAT. So I now want to give the floor to Gonçal.
Hi everyone. I'm very happy to be moderating this panel, also presenting the work we have been doing here at BMAT in the context of the Bloomen project. And I am also very happy to have the participation of some friends and people from the music industry presenting also their works and views with respect to the topic we're tackling today. Today's topic, of course, is music. In Bloomen, we have been seeing how blockchain can help the creative industry in general. And today we are presenting some approaches on the music scene. We will have, so for today, what we will have is starting a presentation of what we have been doing at Bloomen, but later on we'll have a presentation from Revelator. I want to present you to Bruno Guess. If you can turn on the camera, please. He's the Revelator's founder and chief executive officer. Hello, Bruno. Also former director on the board of Merlin Network, the leading music rights agency. And he will be talking about how can we do faster royalty payments thanks to blockchain technologies and wallets, etc. Then we will have Phil Barry with us from Blokur. Phil, if you can turn on the camera to say everyone can see you. He's the founder from Blokur, which is a company founded in 2017 that helps musicians and music companies to get paid what they should when they should, by ensuring that the rights are accurately represented. So he will be presenting on that topic. And then to wrap up the session, before we go to a Q&A answer session, we will have Turo Pekari from the Outsource Society in Finland, Teosto. Turo is a senior advisor and innovation and business insight at Teosto. I don't know, Turo, if you want to turn on the camera so everyone can have a nice picture from you. Hi, Turo. And it will be interviewed by Daniel Harris from Kendraio, the founder of Kendraio. He's also a partner of the Bloomen project. I think that it will be nice after the presentations of the three tech partners or in music industry partners to have this, the view of what CMOs all think about this, right? So that's the menu. It will be around 2 hours. I hope you enjoy it. And before we start, let me just give you some formalities. The participants will be all muted and the camera disabled, but you can write your questions on the box below on your panel on GoToWebinar. And then just formality for you to know that the session will be recorded but nobody from the participants is going to appear. It's just for video for moderators and panelists. The questions you write are private, but by staying, you agree that with that recording, this is a formality we need to mention. Okay. So let's get started into the subject. I will be presenting the first slot. So I will take it. Thanks, Tony. I'm sharing my screen. Okay. So I hope you see it. Okay. The title is Blockchain, My Claim, because this is like the approach we took at Bloomen Music. I am the head of innovation at BMAT. And before getting started, I wanted to frame it a bit on what is Bloomen. Bloomen is, as Tony said, is a co-founded project from the European Union. And it has been developed throughout a consortium of several companies. Some are tech companies, some others are on the leaders on the different use cases we have been exploring. On the one side, we had Deutsche Welle from photojournalism side. We had Antenna, a broadcaster from Cyprus. And in the case of music, the thing we're talking today, BMAT had led this leg of the project, and it mainly tackles how blockchain technology can bring some innovative approaches to solve some questions that still remain unsolved. So we can summarize them in 3 areas: transparency and accuracy, accelerated payment, and enhanced licensing and monetization. At the Bloomen Music, we have naturally positioned through transparency and accuracy, but other use cases of the project have also tackled accelerated payment, licensing, etc. So the values we bring with this project are something that is well known: better copyright protection and rights management, for more dynamic and transparent payments, more efficient contracts and processes, new content and collaborative marketplaces, and decentralized and crowd-based connections. So you know that there has been an explosion in the way we use creations digitally. From 2 decades ago, we have access to millions and millions of assets. So it's very easy for the consumer to access those. It's also been very easy for us to create them. We can create a video in seconds. We can push a song on to a DSP. But on the other side, things are not that easy. So the creators cannot receive the proper remuneration, or we have to fill this gap somehow, because the system is based on some legacy systems and it doesn't catch up. So we will see if we can solve at least part of this and how we are approaching all that questions. First of all, I wanted just to frame a bit the talk, what we do at BMAT, so you understand where do we come from and so on. So BMAT is a company that is based in Barcelona. It was founded several years ago, and it specializes in music monitoring and reporting globally. And we monitor the usages in radio and TV, in venues, even all the digital transactions. So we have become a trusted source of music usage data. So collective management organizations, among others, use our data in order to compensate and attribute correctly the usages that happen. We are quite a big team, scattered across several countries, basically based in Barcelona, but with high representation of engineers and of course musicians and amateur musicians and also professional musicians. And with a clear mission that is in line with Bloomen, but also with all the guests we have today, which is how to make a music ecosystem fairer, more efficient, and transparent, of course. We have been, well, we work with mostly CMOs, collective management organizations. This has been our natural approach to the music industry, but we also work with all other stakeholders that participate in the value chain, from record labels to music publishers and also DSPs, helping them report the music they use, etc., and even broadcasters that want to report correctly the usage of the music. And we operate worldwide. Having said that, what's the vision at BMAT? So we see ourselves providing services to all parties in the industry and building what we like to call the music operating system that hides all the complexities below a layer where all things happen, all the music reporting, the music identification, all things complex happen below this, and we just connect the interested parties in order to make the data flow. And I think this is some common denominator of the other partners, as you will see in today's presentation. We do so because the foundations of BMAT are, we come from the university, so a very robust technology of fingerprinting that allows us to connect and to detect the music real time on all the channels we have, and also with text matching engines, which is as important as the other, because it enables that we can connect the music, the audio, with the proprietaries at the end. And we do so because we have been collecting a huge database. This, when we come to blockchain terms, it starts to be interesting. With high coverage of metadata, we process digital sales reports for the main DSPs. We have a very big infrastructure of radio and television. So we have to leverage all this, no, in a way that we can bring the value back to the creators. And now we are going to the point. So what's the music use case we wanted to tackle at Bloomen? So yeah, you will see that this as something that we will talk today. No, the music supply chain is very complex, and data doesn't flow correctly through the different stakeholders. This is just a diagram, a very simplified diagram of how does it work in the US, but you can have even more complicated things in Europe or in other places. So this music data has difficulties to flow. And so royalty distribution is very inefficient. It's slow, you know, it's expensive because it has to travel through different places. It has lots of content that at the end, they're not matched across different systems. And we have unidentified right owners. And even if we identify them, some data is inconsistent. So as you can see here, the sample in this picture, you see that for a given song, Sony ATV receives a share, but in another system, we have another share, or Joseph Jonas has a different share in one system or another. Imagine this happening in your bank account for your payroll. No, this would be unimaginable, but this happens in the music industry, and we take it as natural. So at the end, royalties takes months to distribute it, and around 25% of royalties are not paid to the artists and creators. And when they do it in a small fraction. So there's a lot of things we could fix here. Then blockchain can help on that. So we believe so because it has some properties that, if are well applied, you can leverage on them to solve some of the problems. Main focus, and these are not the only ones, but we at BMAT we have been lately focusing in streamlining royalty distribution, and also in copyright management, And this is the first one you will see with Bruno's presentation. We have demonstrated, and we will have the opportunity to talk with Teosto as well about that, how we demonstrated that we can pay creators in hours instead of years. It's just a matter of having the good technology with the right workflows. And I won't make spoilers on that because Bruno will have time to talk about this. But if we are able to detect all the music usages, both in radios and TVs and venues, and also process all the big data that is that happens in the digital domain, then if we have the right infrastructure, we can make this, we can automate this and take less time to pay the creators. But before that, we need to know who to pay to, and this is a very hard, this is a very tough question. Not because the creators don't know it, it's just because the way the data flows makes it very difficult. Who's the owner of a given asset? So at Bloomen, we have been experimenting on how can we decentralize rights management instead of the classical approach of a central database of music rights, which is a cool idea, but at the end it didn't work because all the complexities also of governance, no? So we have set a system that we are now running pilots with some data from some CMOs and real data, in fact, that on a nutshell is an application that runs on a blockchain that lets you navigate into a repertoire where you can select an asset you own and to submit a claim. This claim, this ownership claim, will be stored on a blockchain, and as soon as you submit it, everyone that participates in this ecosystem will be aware of that. So if there's any conflict, any disputes in it, for example, there's an overlap on the shares, no, in the territory for that time, then the conflicting parties will get notified and will be able to resolve this, all backed by a system that you don't need trust on the agent that is running this, because it's a decentralized database that or a ledger that everyone knows owns if they want. So now I will demo you a bit this platform. I just before jumping into the demo, having an overview of what is it about and what are the benefits. So, and these are benefits that are inherent to blockchain, but the beauty of it is that the user doesn't need to know anything about it, the same way you don't know anything about how the payment transactions in a Visa work when you pay on the supermarket, and this has how it has to be, no? So it brings transparency, because any interested party that can be part of the system and check the status of all the assets that are in there. Also traceability, because any change that will happen can be audited afterwards. It's decentralized. Nobody is owning the DB. You have a copy of the ledger. There's a mechanism of conflict resolution. So at an early stage, we can detect the conflict before we reach at a point where it's very difficult and costly to go backwards. And at the end, this brings efficiency because it reduces the costs of intermediaries and all the processes that are unnecessary in a system like that. But a last remark about this is that blockchain does not solve the problems per se. As you know, it's just a technology. You have to find the right workflows and knowing how it can be applied. So there are still some things that need to be implemented off-chain and decided and have good workflows. So, for example, who is going to validate the claims in case of conflict that cannot be resolved, and so on. So, and it's something that we can discuss later, perhaps. Now, I want to show you a bit how the system works. I will switch the screen. Let me check. Okay. 1 second. It's not this one. Second. Okay, just a second. Sorry. Now I hope you see it. Okay. So the application, when you arrive, lets you create a user. I won't do the whole workflow, but there are some CMOs set up. You can select one, and then you can be part of this as long as your member, the member of the society, has been authorized by the CMO. And then you fill in your name and last name and role, and you wait for you to be accepted. Once you are in, let's have the second. Let's have a user we have here. I will restore an account. I will log in as a super admin just to show you who are the members that are on the system. It's just a test environment, so we have 2 members for that CMO. And as soon as it loads, you will see. So here, let's wait a bit. Yeah, no. You can see who are the 2 members that I will demo with. Are fake, of course. We have Worldline and Kendraio. Okay, and there's we can set up what is the repertoire that they are going to be able to, the members that are going to share on this system. Okay, we have the test data set, and we have the repertoire that this society has to share. Okay, and what are the claims of their members, right? So now I will move to a member that wants to push a claim. Okay, I will log out. I will log in as a member of, so as Worldline user for that member. And then I will see, I will have less permissions, of course, because I'm not the super admin. I cannot see the list of members, but I will be able to browse the repertoire in it, okay, and fill the claims. So here, a second. Here I have the different assets. For example, this one is a work with some metadata in it, and I recognize that I am an interested party on that, so I will push a claim. I will open this window. I will set my proprietary ID so I can recognize it later on, and I will say, okay, I'm the owner from March to May. That's fake data, of course, and I am the sub-publisher of it in, let's say, Afghanistan. Why not? For mechanical, and I own, let's say, I own the 66% of it. Okay, then I push it, and once I am doing this, everyone can check that. So that's a fact that will be stored on the blockchain. If I go to claims, I will see it here. Okay, this is my claim I've just built in. I can modify it if I want and update it. And then let's say I'm another user and I want to claim that ownership. So I will log in, and then once done, once loaded, this is an Electron application we have developed at Bloomen, but we could have it also in a mobile, or it's just a demonstrator. It could be also web-based. Now I will scroll. I will browse on the repertoire, I will select the same asset here, and I will try to overlap it. So it's just a very straightforward demonstration. It's nothing about blockchain, as you see. It's just selecting some information, putting it on the blockchain, and then let smart contracts to calculate this and bring all the properties from blockchain work on that aspect. For example, I can imagine that I am claiming I am the sub-publisher for this too, and I will say I have the 100% of these mechanicals. So this clearly conflicts with the other, and as simple as that. Now I will push the claim, and instead of having a claim that says claimed, it will tell me that is in conflict. In fact, what I will do is receive a notification, so I will be aware all of a sudden, and the other party as well, that there's a conflict in here. So I can revise it and modify it, and maybe I say, okay, it's true, it's not Afghanistan, I have been mistaken, it's just Italy, and you submit it, and it will recalculate, it will update it on the blockchain, and then it disappears and it changes the status. So it's nothing special from a user perspective view. The power of it is that all the properties that brings the blockchain are here in place. And this is all I wanted to show you on that. If there are any questions, maybe afterwards, because we are a bit tight in time, in the Q&A session, we can talk a bit more on that. And I wanted then, thank you all, to pass to the next talk, which is by Bruno Guess from Revelator. As said, let me invite him as panelist here. I hope, yeah, you can see him. Hi, Bruno.
Okay, I think I'm with you now.
Now you are all good. So Bruno said we'll present how can we do faster royalty payments. All the floor is yours, Bruno.
Awesome. Thanks, Gonçalo. You guys see my screen okay?
Loading, yeah. Yep.
Great. So thank you for that. My name is Bruno Guez. I'm the CEO and founder of Revelator. We've been working on a music copyright, rights administration, reporting, and royalties platform for about 7 years. In the market for about 5 years. I've been fascinated with blockchain technology for about 5 years and doing different types of projects really to understand the strategy and what would become, the right application layer that could be, relevant and provide value on top of distributed ledger technologies. So Revelator started as a need that I had personally to run my record company that I've been doing for the last 25 years and really kind of modernize the business workflows. And so I started investing in cloud-based technologies to really build a solution for myself to provide better collaborative reporting and transparency with the rights holders that I worked with. But by 2015, it was clear that the streaming business models were going to explode with data, making it much more challenging for rights holders to be able to actually understand where they're earning the money and how the money trickles down to all the different stakeholders. So I was really motivated by initially solving a solution for myself to interact in a more modern way with all the artists and publishers that I worked with. So that's how Revelator was born. We went to market in 2015 and started really helping distributors and record labels in being able to kind of scale their operations by just having better tools and better applications to wrangle a lot of copyright data, a lot of contracts and rights data, as well as a lot of consumption and financial reporting to be able to turn into royalties that would be payable to many payees, as many as 100,000. In the case of one large independent distributor, we could easily do 80,000 royalty statements in about 8 minutes, which is something we were never able to do, back in the analog days, if you wish. So what we are doing is really, building modern protocols for copyright and royalty distribution. I believe that digital assets or asset digitization, programmable rights, and fractional ownership are the foundations of a new economic system for the creative IP industry. As I said earlier, we provide solutions for distributors, labels, and tech startups, as well as societies. We've built copyright APIs. We've built artist distribution platforms for large companies like CD Baby and Sounddrop. Sometimes a customer is a tech company with a mobile application with 500,000 users, and they want to add the ability to distribute content from their mobile application, so they'll use our API to kind of deal with all the business workflows around content and distribution, and then reporting royalties and payment. So it is an end-to-end solution. What we've done has taken 5 years to get here, but we started with a cloud-based solution, the application that I'll show you in just a minute, which deals with asset management, rights management, revenue or digital sales report and revenue management, as well as royalties and payments. Over the last couple of years, we've been kind of investing in developing a smart contract platform to connect the distributed ledger infrastructure to the cloud distribution and royalties platform. And at the same time, we started developing a digital wallet. We're 2 years into the development. Last year, we had an amazing project with Turo and Teosto's team and BMAT, and basically learning to process performance and radio performance data in near real time so that we could accelerate royalty payments to songwriters and publishers. And we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. So the artist wallet is what we call it. It's a product that we've developed. And basically, you can register your creative work on the blockchain. You can create smart contract from a very easy user interface on mobile as well as on the web. You can manage your splits with your collaborators. You can record all those on the blockchain. You can integrate the asset, if you wish, from the distribution and royalty streams that come from Revelator to your smart contract, so that you can actually pay rights holders directly to their wallets from the Revelator distribution platform. And all of this is available by API, so any distributor that receives streaming royalties could use our API to manage wallets, transactions, payment transactions, as well as smart contracts. So the goal is to not only get paid to a digital wallet, but really to accelerate the speed at which payments take place. And basically, by aligning all of the workflows within one infrastructure, we're able to go from the copyright side to the supply chain to bringing back the data and the reporting, and then being able to kind of process that automatically through contract and business logic, and then eventually just push all that data and revenue to the wallet. So perhaps what I'll do now is I'll just kind of get into the demo itself. And I'll start by kind of introducing you to Revelator on a very high level. So basically, you have a start page. It's a multi-tenant platform, so anyone can connect and you can manage multiple accounts. So it's not just software, but it's a platform enabling distributors and labels to manage their assets, their rights, their royalties, and revenue. The nice thing about it is that we enable anyone to connect to the DSPs using their own credentials automatically. So you can use it for distribution, You can use it for just digital delivery, similar to CI and Fuga, by just entering your DDEX party ID and your FTP or API connections. You can just use the platform side of it to deliver with your own contracts and your own distribution deals. And we can go down the list and kind of manage all the relevant and major platforms. Once you've connected your DSPs, if you wish, you'll get into processing royalties. First, you'll be receiving revenue from the DSPs, and you'll be processing all of the revenue coming from any place. And you can drill down into it, open it up, view it as a dashboard, so you understand the different territories, the different DSPs, the different months, and you can kind of break it down and kind of understand it at a granular level by track, by country, by service, by label, if you wish, and so on. Once you've approved your revenue, you're basically attributing revenue lines to copyright assets so that we can really understand the amount of money coming in through each asset. Then you'll probably need to define the contracts so that you can very easily manage all of the splits, if you wish. And you can do that with a pretty sophisticated UI where you can define the different terms as well as all the mechanicals, and then be able to define as many terms as you need and kind of manage the splits at the territory level, at the service level, at the formats, and then the income type. So once you've got all the contracts done, then you'll kind of deal with managing royalties. And let's look at a different time period. So revenues are approved, contracts are in place, attribution and matching has been done, and now it's a question of generating a royalty statement for different rights holders. And you can invite them to the platform, you can provide them with a CSV or download. At any time you can download all the details. You can also visualize the royalties. And it doesn't matter whether it's thousands of dollars or pennies. We'll deal with all of those transactions, managing the pays and payments. Now, the way this connects to the blockchain, this is pretty much a distribution platform that's got baked-in rights management, reporting, and royalties, as well as payments. So now what's interesting is connecting to the blockchain by registering an asset and basically saying this release is already registered with ownership and collection straight to the Ethereum blockchain. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of show you the workflow around this. And it's a combination of managing the wallet, which you'll see on the left side, and being able to kind of scan and register a recording or a release. So let me just make this a little smaller. Let me log into the wallet. So maybe I'll just talk about the wallet a little bit initially. Basically, we're registering assets from a distribution platform so that we can actually track it through a smart contract. Once the platform recognizes a smart contract address, it's able to process royalties directly to that asset. So we'll look at different use cases. You can create different types of assets. You can also manage agreements, which are basically smart contracts. And you can define them as well with all the splits and rights holders that you wish. You can look at the activity that's happening on the blockchain for your assets for any given time. When you receive royalties, you get a push notification to your mobile device. And then you also have the ability to manage the wallet itself and send or receive money. And we'll kind of experiment with that a little bit. Excuse me. So going back to the asset and the registration process, we can basically do what's called scan and register. So we'll, in a minute, look at taking a screenshot, I don't need to look at the video because I already know how to do this. But what I'll do is I'll expose a QR code coming from the Revelator platform. So let's look at this one and see if it's already registered or not. Let's go ahead and register this song. We can decide if we want to register ownership or ownership and collection rights. It'll expose a QR code, and I'll take a scan of it. And now I can see the metadata transmitted to the wallet. I'll need you again, but basically the song information is here, directly here. We can kind of add rights holders if we have their wallet information, and I do. So I'm going to scan somebody's Ethereum address. Let me open the scanner. There we go. So I'm going to share 50% of this song, let's say, with Tom. We can decide to share evenly or not. Once we've got the rights sorted out, then I can register this asset directly on the blockchain. And it's going to take a minute. It's going to send a callback to the distribution platform. Once we basically have the asset registered, then it's going to look something like this on the web, where you basically have a URL for the asset or the agreement. As you can see in the URL here, the asset has a smart contract address. It could be an asset or an agreement. We can expose the QR code and basically send money to that asset if we wanted to. So we've basically turned a song or a release, it could be a composition, it could be a video, into a digital finance instrument. If you think that the QR code and the smart contract address is a bank account where you can kind of store rights information as well as receive and send money from. So any of the rights holders can see that money was received on this date, and this is the lifetime of money received. You can see all the metadata information. You can track down the earnings history on a daily or monthly basis. You can see all the payments received for that asset. You can see that there are 24 rights holders connected to this asset, and there are splits at any given time. You actually have the ability to be able to see who owns the rights and their share. And you can also see the transfer history of the rights information. So if I would have transferred some shares to somebody, you can see that very quickly. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. So this kind of provides you with a ledger by which you can actually keep track of everything. And anyone with the address of the asset or the agreement can verify and trace all the information. This is an example where I can go to the wallet, I can find a song, and I'm going to transfer 15% of my holdings of this song to somebody in the same way. So let's scan that and we'll see. So now I've got the wallet address in place. I'm going ahead and transfer some shares. And in a minute, I'll be able to kind of refresh my screen and see that those shares have happened. Now Tom has received 15% of the rights to this song. I can scroll down and I can actually look at who are the rights holders, and I'll be able to see as soon as it confirms on the blockchain that a third person was added to this. I can also see it directly in the activity screen of the mobile wallet. So in this case, you can verify as well by just tapping on it, and the moment that it confirms, then Tom will be added. Let's see if that's already confirmed. Let's refresh the web app, which is pulling information directly from the blockchain. And Tom was added with 15%. So now if I want to send money to this song, then all the rights holders would receive it automatically on their own wallets. This is an example where if you're not a rights holder, you don't actually access any of the financial information. Even though you may have access to the wallet, to the agreement or asset address, you're not able to see anything because you're not a rights holder. So let's take another example of a song. And now let's actually look at how a royalty payment works. So I'll go to my wallet and I'll say I'm going to send money to this song, and let's say $250, in royalties received. Let's expose the QR code. Let's send money to this address. Okay, so I've copied the address of the song, of this asset. Let's go to the next screen. Let's confirm. And now a royalty payment or cash is moving into this digital asset. And the moment that happens, we'll also see a push notification on my phone. Since I'm also a holder of this asset, I'll be able to actually see that I received money. So I'll be a recipient of royalties for this asset. So if I own, I forget how much I own, maybe 70% or 50%, I should receive a fraction of the money that was received. Now, what's interesting is this has now been integrated into the Revelator platform, so we can start to make royalty payments directly to smart contracts and automatically trigger payments to all the rights holders that are active participants in a given asset. So there's my $87.50 for my royalties, and I can see my activity feed will update accordingly with royalties received. So if we want to look at how that happens now from the Revelator side, we know that we can actually register assets. And now we've been working on being able to kind of list all those assets from the web as registered assets or smart contracts. We can now also pay using Original Works one or more smart contracts at the same time, and then be able to transfer value directly from the cloud to a smart contract using the Original Works protocol to be able to send royalties from streaming platforms directly to rights holders. So that's kind of the technology on one side, the distributed ledger technology that we've been working on, including the smart contract platform, the digital wallet, integrating the digital wallet and smart contract technology into the music distribution platform so that we can move royalties on a daily basis to rights holders. So we're really super excited about this. At the same time, we have the ability to create smart contracts from the web as well. So we're now developing more web-based tools in order for us to be able to make it even easier and be able to add different rights holders and create an agreement from web just as easily as we did earlier from the mobile. The other things I could show you is regarding managing all the agreements on the web. You can actually see a list of all your agreements, and now we're working on adding the assets view from the web as well, so that it'll be easy for you once you're logged in and authenticated to be able to actually see all of your agreements or contracts with anyone, whether it's on web or mobile. And then obviously when you click through it, they'll take you to the page of the agreement where you could expose a QR code or be able to actually see all the financial transactions related to this specific asset. So we feel like we've built the right amount of transparency and the right amount of infrastructure to provide kind of a next generation royalty processing and distribution functionality, whether it's on the recorded music side or the music publishing side. Perhaps now is a good time to talk a little bit about what we did last year with Teosto. And basically the goal was to accelerate payments for radio performance royalties. So we integrated the BMAT API, and we were tracking 3 songs that were connected to 19 different wallets. We mapped all the smart contracts and developed all the 19 wallets with their pro rata share of the royalties that they owned. And every 2 hours, we were able to kind of get usage data from the BMAT API, which enabled us to attribute the royalties to the smart contract in near real time every 2 hours and provide Teosto with an interface. Let me see if I can show you. There it is, with an interface to be able to authenticate themselves. So this is the Teosto wallet authenticating into the web app and be able to see a list of agreements, which are the songs, and be able to pay the royalty that were attributable based on the BMAT usage data and the terms set by Teosto in the smart contract. And by obviously taking a scan and authenticating the payment with a QR code, the money would be sent to this song and distributed to the different rights holders automatically. So there you have it. This is kind of what we've been working on. We look at kind of solving different use cases. In the case of working with Teosto and BMAT, it was for performance royalties. We're currently in another project with a large music publisher dealing with settlement of mechanical royalties from the DSPs. So it's actually interesting in expanding our functionality and use case so that ultimately the smart contracts can process any type of royalties, whether it's coming from the recorded music side and streaming or from usage and performance or mechanical. Doesn't really matter to us. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be happy to answer questions after this. Gonzalo, I think you're muted.
Yeah, now I was saying that it's awesome. It's super interesting and really complete. I hope there are some interesting questions. Let me check. Yeah, there are a couple of questions we can address at the end. But for the sake of time, we'll move to the next presentation. Thank you a lot, Bruno.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and I will introduce you now to Phil Barry from Blokur. Let me check. Phil, are you there?
I'm here.
Hello. Perfect. So I'll let you present Blokur, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Gonzalo, for having me here to speak today. My name is Phil Barry. I'm founder and CEO of Blokur. Blokur is a platform that helps musicians and music companies get paid what they should, when they should, by focusing on making sure that their rights are accurately represented. You can think of us in some ways as a data hub where we receive information from lots of different sources, so predominantly from music publishers, identify upfront where there are any errors, inconsistencies, gaps in that information, combine it all together, and then deliver corrections and enhanced information, enriched information to pay sources like collecting societies. That might include, for example, enriching with new information about recordings of your song, solving conflicts over rights shares and these kinds of things along the way. We work with about 50 music publishers, big and small, some of the biggest in the world. And then if you were to sort of look over the course of a year of who's been in the top 10 music publishers in Billboard, you find pretty much all or most of those in working with Blokur in one way or another. And we also help the users of music, whether that be streaming services or whether that be people who want to license a song for a TV show, a film, a video game, to get access to the information they need to make sure that they can license the music from the right person and pay the right person. So that in the end, that means that the money goes to the right person gets paid. It takes a lot of pain and effort out of the process for everybody. So the problem was been described by a couple of different people up front in this session. I'll give you my take on it. As I see it, the biggest challenge in the publishing side, at least, is just that there are a huge number of people involved in terms of the stakeholders. So it's useful sometimes to look at a real example, and here's
I'm sorry,
Funk.
Phil, I'm sorry for interrupting, but you are not sharing the screen. We are not seeing anything.
Well, that's surprising. It says that I am. Let's see what happens if I... I'll just go for... What about now?
Yes, now we can see. You can go to full screen.
Okay,
Excellent,
so this
you.
is what you missed. This is what you missed. This was the diagram for the data hub example. So music information coming in from publishers on the one side, then being cleaned up, enriched in the middle, and spat out the other side to income sources. Here we are. So here's the example I was up to there. So as I was saying, kind of sometimes it's instructive to see a real life example, and Uptown Funk is a great one because it's got at least 11 songwriters, and each of those songwriters have got contracts with multiple music publishers to start with, and then those music publishers then have multiple contracts around the world for people to collect money on their behalf. And I like to think of this as a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, with each of these stakeholders, each of these shares that people own in different countries, being a piece of a jigsaw puzzle. And as we know, as we talked about, very often we'd love it if the puzzle was complete, but very often it's not. There's pieces missing, or there's the wrong piece there, or the piece you're using is out of date. And when that happens, that's when money gets stuck in the system, doesn't reach the right person, maybe it reaches the wrong person. And so what Blokur does is to combine together all of this information from different sources, I say predominantly from publishers, but also from societies, directly from writers, sometimes from record labels, and also we enhance it with information we can get from, you name it, anywhere else in public information, combine it all together and create the best possible understanding that we could have of the current rights picture of that song. And then we print that to the blockchain as a auditable trail of who owns the rights for this given song at this given point in time that you can track forwards and back in time. And to do that, there are really kind of two, besides the blockchain, there are really two key technologies involved, one of which is in matching. So one of the biggest problems is that because of this picture that I show you here, you've got multiple different people all providing information to all of the time, not just to us, but in general, about the same song, but they're providing only their piece of the information. So they might spell the songwriter's name slightly differently, or they might include the middle name where someone else is not using a middle name, or maybe they're using a slight variation in the title. And this means that it's very complicated to match and consolidate this information. And that's why when you look in most music rights databases, you'll see the same song lots of times with half the information in each one. And the way that Blokur tackles this is using a graph-based matching technology. And so as with this example here, so wouldn't it be nice by the Beach Boys, basically we create a web of all of the relationships that exist around the song or the songwriter if we're searching for a songwriter. So maybe for a songwriter, we might say, okay, this is their real name, this is their artist name, these are the different pseudonyms and alternative names that they're known by, these are their collaborators, these are the songs they've worked on, the publishers they're connected to, labels they're connected to if they're part of it, being an artist as well. And we use this as the way of identifying an individual or of identifying a song. And what it does, the bottom line is, it means that we can create more candidates for matching because we're using more elements. And then because it has a kind of a multiplying effect of probability, it means that we can reduce the number of errors. So you both get more matches found and lower error rate. And in the end, that means that you're more likely to know that two people are talking about the same song, so you can fit it together and create the complete picture. And another key part is, okay, so we've worked out that everybody is talking, I missed it. So the point is that if you have this graph, what we do is we search then in the overall graph. So the whole of all the data that Blokur has available to it is constructed into this enormous graph of relationships. And when you're actually doing the search, you're not searching by one of the words on this slide, you're actually searching by that little, almost like, dare I say, like a little virus-shaped graph of all of the different relationships. And this is an example, actually, if you were to look at, this is one of the major music publishers, and this is the graph that we hold of their catalog. And you can see in the middle is their kind of main corporate entity, and then the other large nodes around here are different companies of theirs around the world. Around the outside here are songs and songwriters, and you've got all the relationships between them. And in the middle here, the sub-publishers and different people they have deals with. And so this is how we basically search within this big web of information for our miniature web of information. So I've worked out that everyone is talking about the same song. Now what we have to do is identify whether the claims that everyone is making are consistent. So we will look at kind of like a tree. Imagine a tree of rights where you go down every limb, down every country. You go down to Japan, you say, okay, performance shares in Japan, there's 1% of the end of the limb here. Is anyone else claiming for that? Is there anything inconsistent about the publishing chain? And we do on a very granular basis, therefore, mapping what the user provides against what other users provide and what Blokur has on record in the current state. And when we find discrepancies, we first of all try and resolve it algorithmically by looking at the principle is that the closer you are to the data you provide, then the larger weight you'll have in the algorithm. And failing that, then we give people an opportunity to resolve the issue amongst themselves and produce a new output. So I'm going to show you a very short video. It is a bit blink and you'll miss it. Video is the best way of anonymizing it. So this is our sort of in-house publisher we use for these occasions called Big Tuna Publishing, and you'll also see Small Fry Publishing coming up in here. So it's based on real life, but it's like when you go to the movies at the beginning, it says any similarity to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. So here we are. We have Big Tuna Publishing, and they've registered just over 330,000 songs with Blokur, and we're telling them the dashboard here that 330,000, most of them, everything is okay. We call that in sync. That means in sync with the current record on the blockchain that Blokur has. 2,000 of them, there is some error or issue that needs to be addressed. And then there are further 4,000 where someone else has registered a song and is informing us that Big Tuna Publishing is likely to have an interest in this and may want to take a look in case they want to register their interest in that song. Down here, we are highlighting the most popular songs according to Spotify, where there is some kind of error that should be addressed. The reason being that you might want to put most of your effort where you're going to get something out of it. So if you solve a song that's very popular, then it's worth your while. And then over here, I'll come to this later, but this is analyzing where your song is being used in digital charts on streaming platforms. I'll click on the video here. So I'm going to show you a song here that is in sync, as I was calling it. So country song, disguised song here. But above the line, you can see kind of global descriptive information. like the ISWC, the different writers, recordings linked to this song, and then the artists that are linked to those recordings. And you can from here navigate to go and click back and see all the songs, for example, by Shirley Davis, or all of the recordings, all the songs that are linked to recordings performed by Jane Jones. And then under the line here, I can choose the country and look at specific rights information for that country. So I'm going to go to UK here, and the limits of my disguising mean I can't hover here, but if I were to hover on each of these blocks, I'd see specific information about these writers and publishers. There's writers over here on the left and publishers on the right hand side. Big Tuna Music Publishing, that's me. This is Small Fry, so they've also registered this song with Blokur. And down the bottom, we've got a table showing us similar information. And it was blink and you miss it. There is you'll see here activity. So activity, it was mentioned that one of the interesting things about blockchain is the ability to keep an audit trail that you can track over time. And this is a visualization of that. So it goes all the way back to when the song was first registered. And it tells you every time somebody was added, somebody was removed, somebody was added to a new country, there was a change, these kinds of things. And it shines a light on everything that's going on. It's a great way of spotting issues, potential issues. This is a song that's less happy. It's one where we have a conflict. So in this case, it's telling me that there are conflicts in these countries, so Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan. And I'm seeing now a comparison between what I've submitted and what is currently the current state on the blockchain according to Blokur, which is that Small Fry Music Publishing is the publisher for that share. Well, I might think here, okay, I realize that it really should be Small Fry in this country, so I can click here and I can accept that for all of the different countries where that's relevant, where I want to concede and give up my claim. Or I can go through and try and force it into my favor. So if I do that, you can see I'm trying to replace what's currently there on this side, which is Small Fry, with my view, which is Big Tuna. And obviously, this is a simple example where it's the whole song. It's more common that you're claiming for your particular share, or that it's down to something more nuanced in the publisher chain, but this illustrates the idea. And what I can do here is I can either submit just an informal message and have it go to the other side and engage in a chat with them, or if I want to set a clock ticking and really force the issue, I can upload some evidence in the form of basically a proof of the existence of a contract, or even the contract if I want. And if that happens, there'll be a certain amount of time before the other side needs to respond if they don't want to lose. And the idea is this combination of requiring evidence and requiring people to respond in a certain time is meant to reduce spam, and then also have an incentive for people to be active. And then what I can do is I can choose where I want to send the result of this. So I can choose from that list you just saw there. I can say, okay, I want all of these people to know when this is resolved in my favor. And when that happens, there'll be communication to each of those parties telling them that this has been updated. And it comes from the parties, so from Big Tuna and Small Fry in this case, so that there's no ambiguity. It's not that required that Blokur should be trusted to make this update. It's because you're trusting the people who both agree that this is now the truth. And then I mentioned it before, but this is the chart feature. So here we're now that once you have the copyright information, you can really start to build on top of it and do interesting things with it. So here we're matching, again, using that same matching process, this time from recordings to compositions. So when we see that a recording is used in the chart, we see who are the publishers, and we inform the publishers when their song is in the chart. And we also calculate for them a market share based upon their actual shares of songs actually in the chart right now. The Big Tuna is, well, you can see a bunch of charts. You can go on global, showing you the list here, and you can also go for specific countries. And Big Tuna is especially strong in rock music. I think we're going to get to see that, where they had, yeah, we're not going to see that, but there you go. So 34 songs in the chart, and that would have showed you the market share as well. So that's a quick demonstration of the platform. I hope it gives you a flavor. It's really all about having accurate information on the one hand so that if you're a rights owner, you get credited and paid for what you should do. And then on the other hand, if you're the user of music, you can come to Blokur and find very quickly who is the publisher, who is the songwriter, who do I need to get my license from, who should I be paying. What I wanted to show you just to finish is kind of a fun example of what we can do in terms of by establishing a new infrastructure, a new level of accuracy, a new engine around rights and royalties and everything else we're talking about today, licensing. What kind of new things can we build if we unlock the potential by doing that? So this is a fun project we did, I think it was 1.5 years ago now, but still interesting. A collaboration with Massive Attack for their 20th anniversary release of Mezzanine. And Mezzanine, those that don't know, is an album that was #1 in late 90s, and it was a result of a lot of collaborations, of samples, and of this idea of Massive Attack as a collective. And so what's interesting to think about today is what would happen if, instead of having a collective bound by the walls of a studio, what if the whole world is the collective and they can all participate online? And so Massive Attack created an app where you could stitch together your own version of songs from Mezzanine, your own remix. And I'll show you, I don't know whether the sound is going to work or not on this video. This was a gamble, we didn't have time to test it, so let's see. So I'll show you the nonsense that I came up with outside my house when I was trying this. So when you smile, the lyric starts playing. That's a sample that I made playing a terrible noise with a filter and me shaking my phone around. And you kind of get the idea, I think, if you can hear any of that, of what it's about. And I'm sure you can use it to create something tasteful, but that was not my objective there. So what it does to actually allow you to do this is it tracks, or the part that Blokur was involved in, is that to assemble these remixes on the fly from different people who are interacting with the song, the app brings together different samples and loops and stems from the original song, and in real time stitches them together to create the new piece of music. And what Blokur did was to identify every time one of these individual pieces of music is played, and in doing so also track who was the original rights owner, who was the original composer, the original performer, the original record label, the original music publisher, everyone associated with it. And as it flows through here to basically say, here's a new piece of music that's made up of all other pieces of another song, or maybe multiple songs, and we can say there's a new right structure based on the original right structure of these pieces of music that went into it, that were fed into it. We can give the user that made their own remix, if they included their own sample and they did something creative in it, maybe we can give them a share of the song as well. It's about this idea of just saying, if you're willing to define clear rules about the use of your music, and if you have the technology to make it happen, you can unleash that music on the world and let people do whatever they want, come up with all kinds of creative ideas, and everybody can participate in the value that's created. And so this is a visualization of how we were tracking which assets, which bits of audio were used at each point in a remix. This is taken from the dashboard that we built for them. This is sort of the same thing, but in descriptive form. And then we can analyze and even get into, well, what should be the royalties that were paid? So we would calculate based on the rates that you would expect somebody to be earning overall for the play, and then divided by the different people, whether they're performers, whether they're songwriters, maybe they're both, and work out how much they should be getting and tally that over time. That's a very interesting project. So this was something of a one-off for us, but it sort of points to the future, I think, of how the kind of creative world and what we want to do with consuming music online, whether it's this type of thing or whether it's to do with, you know, the TikToks and these other kind of platforms, to enable all of that creativity and all of that potential and ultimately value that we want to create for the creators and the people that invest in creators. it makes it a lot easier if we can simplify everything around the rights and the licensing to make it happen, to make it possible. And this is to demonstrate how that potential comes about. Finishing on that theme, then, I kind of like to draw the analogy with the finance industry. When my father got his first ever job in a bank in the early 1960s, his job was to clean out the inside of the safe. He sort of go in there on his hands and knees. And this is a job that probably doesn't even exist nowadays, from a regional bank in Wolverhampton that probably has no need to exist either. And in the middle, we've had a huge transformation with automation, technology, computing in the way that things are done. So we don't really have any more people standing around on trading floors with pieces of paper. We have high-speed computers doing things. That means that we have more transactions, we have more deals being done, ultimately more value going through the system, more people being employed, a much bigger industry overall. Leaving aside the other, political questions about finance and high-frequency trading and all of that. But I believe that there's an equivalent transformation for us to have the benefit of in music if we can upgrade the engine, the fundamental infrastructure of the music industry, which is rights and royalties and licensing. So we can bring about an equivalent transformation to the one that we've seen in finance, in this industry, but this time not for the benefit of bankers and financiers, but for the benefit of creators and for the creative ecosystem. I think that's just about it. If you're interested in getting in touch, love to hear from you, either if you're a rights owner of some kind, if you're a user of music, whether for an app, a streaming service, for TV and film, please reach out to us, or if you're involved in managing rights, a society or some other third-party organization. So please drop me a line. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. Nice analogy, this last one. I like it very much. Thanks for your presentation. And now it's time for CMOs to say what they think about all this and how are they planning to adopt these technologies we have seen. If I will pass the presentation to Tony so he can share a screen while Daniel is getting ready. And Turo, hello.
Hello. Hello.
All set. So I give the floor to Daniel Harris from Kendraio.
Thank you.
That will be having conversation with Turo Pekari from Copyright Management Organization in Finland, Teosto.
Thank you very much, Gonçalo. Just first an introduction for myself. My name is Daniel Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Kendraio. Kendraio is a non-profit interoperability advocacy initiative. We are developing a free and open source dashboard application for rights owners, music makers, managers, and record labels to manage and track their digital media assets, gigs, collaborations, and associated rights across multiple third-party service providers. Kendraio app integrates with CMOs and PROs, online distribution, gig listing sites, and social networks via their APIs. Our app also enables users to compare and analyze fan engagements with sales reports from multiple sources simultaneously. We are very proud that we are funded by the EU as a partner of Bloomen and have also recently won a place on the Next Stage Challenge Accelerator program. And interestingly, we have integrated our app with Teosto's API, which brings me neatly to Turo. Hello. Turo, hello. What is Teosto and what do you do there?
Oh, first of all, thanks for inviting me here. It's a big pleasure. Teosto is a rights management organization of musical authors and music publishers in Finland, which actually makes it pretty cool. We are a small society compared to the big ones like PRS or GIMA or SACEM, but we still have around 70 million euros annual turnover, over 33,000 members, and we are also doing pan-European licensing for online content, and of course through our reciprocal agreements, licensing music for international content in Finland. Like many of you might know, in Finland we really embrace innovation, and Teosto has been in the forefront, also pushing CMOs to adopt new technologies through our innovation platform Teosto Futures Lab, and through our international collaborations in different areas like blockchain technology, AI, biosensor technology, music education, and edX sports, for example. If we think about collective management organizations, they are kind of unique creatures because they are old. They are like really, really old.
How old
I think the first of them, SACEM from France, was established in 1852, I think, by the time when people started to go out to concerts listening to classical music. And
Right.
most of European CMOs were formed during the 20s, during the rise of broadcast TV and radio, like Teosto as well. They are all non-profits owned by their members. So just remember that all the time when people are whining about that CMOs should disappear, I will say that we are going to stay around as long as our owners will find us useful.
I didn't say anything, by the way. Wonderful. Okay, so where is the pain for you and your CMO? What's really difficult at the moment? What creates a lot of pain for everyone there?
There's a number of things. I've been working for Teosto already for quite some time, almost 10 years, if I remember right. When I started to work here, the whole landscape was different. During that time, I think we were processing annually some millions of lines of data in order to distribute royalties to our members. Nowadays, we are talking about trillions of lines of data. Everything is increasing. We have growing number of music releases, growing number of musical works, growing number of music creators and artists, growing number of stakeholders in musical works and releases. In popular music, it's normal that one hit song might have 20 or 30 different stakeholders, co-writers, publishers, not to mention sub-publishers in different territories. And in many occasions, it will make music licensing and royalty distribution quite messy, and some of the stakeholders might get their money faster, some a bit slower, depending who's the one managing your rights.
So in terms of technology, surely if with the massive increase of data you're having to process, don't you just chuck more computing power at it? Won't that suffice?
Yes, that's one answer to that. But of course, computing power, it's always a choice on how much money can you spend to distribute money to the right people, or using a little bit less money and distribute money to at least all of the right people. And at the same time, direct licensing is pretty much coming the new norm in the online world. So what it means for example, to CMOs is that you are pretty much worth what your local repertoire is worth, because you can't anymore rely on the revenues that we've been getting from licensing of international content, and that is something which is making the business more difficult, especially to smaller markets.
I'm curious just about that. direct licensing, what is that? The artists are going direct to CMOs in each country?
It might be happening sooner or later also, but with direct licensing, I'm mainly talking about publishers licensing directly their content with digital music platforms, right. And also CMOs directly licensing their content pan-European ways or even globally, so they are not anymore waiting that their sister society is distributing the money to them. So pretty much getting rid of at least one middleman in the process.
Right. Is that kind of one of the reasons why the GRD didn't work? Because those lines are not really available anymore.
Yeah, but just to continue what you were saying, at the same time, self-governance of rights is also a rising phenomenon, and especially in Finland, we are in the forefront in that. Teosto is actually giving its members wider possibilities to take out even a specific work in several specific music usage areas to self-governance and license it by themselves. And I'm pretty sure that this is a thing which will also come much more common in the future in other countries as well. And in order to individual people to self-govern their rights, they need services to do that, whether they are provided by CMOs or by third-party services or as white label third-party services. That's something to watch out in the future.
Do you think the trend is that those services are being provided to artists and to composers? Do you see that happening?
Mm-hmm. It's going to happen, and that's something we are working on here in Finland as well.
Okay, so should we talk a little bit about the technology that kind of you're coming across and how that either helps or hinders? I mean, how are you solving these problems? What's of interest to you? What are you implementing in your own in Teosto itself?
I think one big thing that I am working on and trying to constantly push is obviously about the issues and problems with data. I don't want to talk about too much about the value gap. I think the data gap in music industry is a more important one. And for music industry players like CMOs or publishers and labels, it's my constant mission to talk about data sharing and interoperability issues and usage of APIs in order to exchange data between different stakeholders in the business, because I believe that it's the only way we can make this business survive and flourish, because there's not going to be one big solution for rights management. There's going to be several databases. They just need to talk with each other, whether they are using blockchain or not.
So it sounds like a kind of even a federated or a even wider kind of network of interconnecting databases that you're talking about, all with APIs. And are you seeing that kind of trend happening in the CMO world? Is that being investigated?
A little bit, but not enough. Right. And especially if any one of you have read the new European data strategy by the Commission, there's a lot of talk about cross-industry data spaces and new ways to gain the untapped potential when you are exchanging data between different industries. So we are not anymore just talking about ISWC codes and ISRC codes, which is of course a big problem in the music to match them, even if it really sounds not so difficult to do that, but it still is. We have identifiers of individual creators, IPI for songwriters and publishers, and IPN number for artists and musicians, but in the future, I think if we think about data sharing in general and cross-industry, if we want to unleash creativity of people and consumers to make new multimedia content, we also need to take care that unique identifiers like ISAN or for audiovisuals, or ISBN for books, or ISSN for journals, and more generic codes like ISCC and ISNI are something that we need to take into account.
Yeah. And do you see that happening, a move towards that, or is that still something that needs to be very, very pushed in order to meet European directives?
It needs to be pushed, but there's something going on in Finland into that direction, and I am hoping that we will have some interesting news sooner or later.
Wonderful. Let's hope it's sooner. Should we talk a little bit about blockchain?
Yep.
Yeah, just before we get too deep into it, I just, about the pervasive, just generically, what's attractive to you about blockchain? What are the elements that kind of like fire you up?
Blockchain has been in our radar for already many years, and I kind of almost accidentally ended up as a kind of usual suspects in music industry, blockchain talks and panels, basically being the voice of music publishers and music rights management organizations. That's been a good thing because I've managed to get to know basically all of the relevant people in this domains, some talking here today as well. But if we think about what are the attractive things or relevant use cases in music industry or collective management, well, blockchain technology is, of course, it's a powerful way to verify any kind of data recorded or stored into a distributed ledger. The data can be about transactions, about ownership, or about identity. And as we've seen during the last couple of years, there has been a number of new companies, some already disappeared, some still alive, and different initiatives playing around with different areas of music business. Of course, claim resolution being one of them, which is the topic of Bloomen as well, identity validation, metadata management, automated licensing with smart contracts, and actually also self-governance of rights, which is also close to what Bruno and Revelator is doing.
Absolutely, and it's very interesting. You've tracked this over a long period of time, and I came across blockchain a few years ago, and it felt like it was going to be all pervasive and everyone was jumping on board, and I just wondered, given that timeline, what happened? I mean, it might be a technological thing or it might be more of a marketing thing, but it felt like it was going to be huge, and then it didn't quite get there. What do you think happened?
Nothing happened. Blockchain failed, and
really?
There are a couple of reasons why it failed. Basically, when music industry started to discuss about blockchain, it was mainly a kind of an ideological thing about cutting the middleman, and we need to get rid of the dirty music business people. And as we have seen, it's actually not a good way to develop a business with music industry people, to tell them that we don't need you anymore. And at the same time, personally, I believe that, believe it or not, we are living the golden age of middleman. If you think about, for example, how CMOs are doing nowadays, better than ever. And actually, it's also a growing competitive space, because nowadays pretty much anyone can establish their own CMO, like we have seen with Unison in Spain, or Soundreef in Italy, or Copyright Delta in the Netherlands. And I believe that more and more players, also not just non-profit players, are entering into this field. And that's something which will make this industry much more complex than it used to be.
Really interesting. I love the golden age of the middleman, or middle person, I should say. But yeah, I think that really encapsulates kind of the opposite way of looking at it, because back in the day it was like, yes, it's going to be an end-to-end situation that it will be there. Probably it's trustless. There won't be any middle people. So yeah, that's an interesting thing that now we're actually turning that on its head.
Yeah, but another reason why blockchain failed is the simple thing which our friends in Blokur and Revelator and BMAT know very well, is that the process of selling something to music industry organizations, especially CMOs, take a lot of time and also deep pockets. Many of the players around would not be alive anymore if we think about companies like Session or Imogen Heaps Mycelia, unless their founders would have deep pockets. So
right.
It takes many years to convince music industry players about buying the idea of new technology and solutions, and that's something many startups have to deal with all the time.
Of course. So maybe we should see if there's any silver linings. Could you give us a kind of are you at all positive that this is gonna, that there's going to be uses for blockchain and technologies?
Yeah, even though blockchain failed, it didn't disappear, and I believe that we are going to see finally more and more real business cases around blockchain technology. It started as a tech thing, and it was probably not a good thing for wider adoption. And if we think about companies entering into this field, I would say that they should focus on solutions that do not require total or wide adoption from the whole industry, because that's something which is difficult. So blockchain should be, and it can be, a part of the solution, but not the solution.
Right. Okay, so your advice there is it's got to work with at least, you know, with the first person. It shouldn't need 100,000 people for it to work, kind of thing. That's of
course. It shouldn't need 150 CMOs.
Right. Thank you. And talking of CMOs, where do you think they're going to be in 10 years? What's going to happen?
That's a good question. And in my work, I'm also leading our corporate foresight works here at Teosto, and we are having a lot of discussions about what's the world going to be, for example, in 2030, and nobody knows. In the CMO world, there's always a lot of politics involved, and that's something which makes it also a bit difficult. Personally, I would see that it would make sense that in 5 to 10 years' time, there would be organizations offering rights management services in a generic way, not just for authors or recordings. They should be able to do the both. It's just for historic reasons we have different organizations providing these services. And at the same time, like I mentioned, what is already kind of happening in Finland is that CMOs might be in the future more and more service providers for individuals to license their own IP and content. And of course, some, especially bigger CMOs, might be also service providers to other CMOs. So what's something which SOCAN is already investing a lot, and SASEM with their URISE platform, for example.
Like white labeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just riffing on that theme, do you see a world where like all the lines get really blurred, and like record labels and CMOs, and it's just one big mishmash of service providers all sort of like offering bits of the pie, as it were?
It's pretty much already happening. We've already seen that a lot of companies are looking for new positions in the value chain, especially in publishing. If we think about what Downtown is doing, acquiring a lot of different companies to build a kind of full stack music industry model, or right. Cobalt. So there's a lot of things happening in that area, but also CMOs have been acquiring companies, and distributors are becoming publishers, and publishers are becoming distributors, and it might get complex.
It's going to be a very exciting world. Turo, I think we've come to time. On behalf of Bloomen, I'd really like to thank you very much for your concise thoughts and entertaining ideas. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Cheers.
Now, yeah, thank you guys. I will ask you to keep your cameras on, and also to invite Phil and Bruno to turn on their cameras, so we can have a small some minutes discussing some questions people have written on the tool, and I will take it from. There are a bunch of questions. There's a I don't know if we will have time to answer them all. Maybe we can spend some more minutes past 6. But if not, maybe we can then take them and answer them offline. But just to talk about, connecting with the last discussion you were having, Daniel and Turo, Stefan Karl asks, how long do you think it will take for these systems to be used in real life? Now it's pretty much connected to your last the last topic you were touching. So Turo, any idea of how are you going to start implementing not all the solutions, but at least some of these principles we have been seeing today?
We are pretty much working on that at the moment, but for CMOs to start adopting blockchain technologies in a production environment, it's going to happen probably pretty soon. And I believe that we're just gonna forget the word blockchain and just talk about technology.
Yeah, things are quickly now happening, and perhaps we will see, as I said, probably not the full featured thing, but some initiatives starting to appear on real life, and some of them are piloting advanced pilots. Some are in the first steps of production. All we need is to start inviting the stakeholders to start. I would say not frightened from the technology, but start talking about the services themselves, and forgetting about the technology behind it. No. There's another question by Peter Thoms saying, there's a big emphasis on publishing. What about broadcasting royalties, particularly for non-featured and orchestral musicians? Further, how do you deal with problem territories like Australia, who do not pay broadcasting royalties to non-resident performers? I don't know who want to take this. Probably it's more for a CMO, Turo.
That was quite a specific question. I'm not probably the best person in the world to answer how to deal with Australian broadcast royalties. But in many ways, because of the nature of reciprocal agreements, we are pretty much depending on the way, for example, what Opera AMCOS is doing in Australia, and pretty much we get what they deliver to us, and there's nothing really that Teosto can do about it.
Yeah. So sorry, we cannot give a specific answer to that, but I will keep this the topic of PROs appearing in here, but this was addressed to Bruno, and perhaps taking advantage of Turo here, we can have an answer on that. Stephen Carl asks, PRO contracts often state the PRO has the exclusive right to claim the money for the rights holder. If I get paid directly via wallet and a smart contract on Revelator system, how will that play with the contract I have with my PRO? Bruno.
I'll just explain that the Revelator platform, what I demonstrated today, is a recorded music platform. So the PRO is not really party to the direct distribution royalties on the master side. So I don't think that's the right use case. And that's what we've been doing, is we've been building artist distribution platforms and royalty platforms to enable the master side or the rights holders to be able to collect faster. So by using daily consumption data, we can advance the money that would be paid by the DSPs, 45, 60, 90 days, and so on. So daily payments, in our view, can come much faster from the recorded music side if you're using streaming data to actually collateralize the future earnings and the future royalties. The project that we did with BMAT and Teosto last year was a proof of concept that this was also possible on the publishing side, where the use of data and the faster processing of data with encoded rights and smart contracts would enable real-time attribution and real-time payments. So I'm not suggesting that the Revelator platform cuts out the PRO, quite the opposite. If anything, the technology that we're providing enables the PROs to process data faster, attribute rights and payments faster, and make the payments to their members.
Nice. And while I have you here, there's a question that was addressed to you while your presentation, also by Stephen, saying what happens if the data on the blockchain is wrong, incomplete, because my collaborator didn't confirm, register, etc. And perhaps we can relate it to the next one, saying what happens to uncountable royalties if I have registered my 60%, but my collaborator hasn't registered her 40%, let's say.
It's a very good question. I think it touches on all three of, or four of us in this context. Dealing with unknowns, unclaimed rights or shares is probably going to be an issue more on the publishing side than the recorded music side. On the recorded music side, labels and artists know what they share, what they split. Distributors and labels or artists have a specific arrangement agreement. It's pretty easy to understand who the rights holders are on the recorded music side. On the publishing side, it starts to get a little bit more fuzzy, especially as you start to get around multi-territorial jurisdictions and sub-publishers and who's collecting in what territory. I think Blokur is doing an amazing job at kind of bringing transparency and visibility to that. The challenge, I think, really is around self-custody and claim management. What do you do about the unclaimed rights and shares? And then it starts to get into conversations around kind of having escrow agreements or escrow contracts that enable the claims that you do know about to be paid out, and the claims that you don't know about to be held in escrow until that can be proven or agreed upon and then distributed eventually.
because also Stephen, who has contributed a lot on the questions, asked if we have all the data. That's a big if. How do you onboard data? And probably it's in line what Turo was asking for. We have to envisage for systems that don't need all the whole ecosystem to be on that, because otherwise it will be impossible to start moving anything. So we have to make an hybrid approach where we can operate in this uncertainty and transition, no? And finding the right use cases where this is working and this helps, and it's self-contained, no? I have another question here. Maybe, yeah, this is for Phil. It says, question toward the last slide of Blokur, saying, how does this create more value? Wouldn't that mean that more music is demanded?
I don't know if I totally understand the question, but I think more value
yeah.
In the end, if we can make it easier for someone who has a brilliant idea for a new way of consuming music or delivering music to get the rights that they need, and we can make it cheaper for them to do so, make it faster for them to do so, that just means there's less friction towards new ideas coming to market. And secondly, because when you have as we were trying to demonstrate with the massive attack example, although it's a small example, if you can have all of the information available in a way where it's kind of just immediately available via an API, and you don't need to worry about the complexity that it's hidden from you, it's abstracted away, and you just have to go, yeah, I just want this, then those two things just ought to mean that there are more new ideas for the ways of consuming music that are implemented. And the more music that is used, the more new ways in which it is used, then the more value ought to flow back to rights holders, and it should be good for everybody.
Agreed. Derivative works unleashed.
Yeah, it was a good demonstration on how a new situation that exploits technology that enables new situation, new ways of creating and adding the value to what we really create dynamically. Now we are not talking about static systems, but how can we work with all these in a native way and bringing the value from the beginning. It's super interesting. There's a question for Turo. When you were talking about percentages of usage reports, so could you estimate what percentage of usage reports you cannot get be paid out of rights holders due to inconsistent wrong metadata? Do you have a ballpark here for that percentage of usage reports you cannot pay because of inconsistency, wrong metadata, etc.?
I don't have an exact number to give you, but I think as we are dealing with Finnish repertoire, we are quite good in that. It's probably more bigger problem for international repertoire and especially songs with stakeholders from many different countries and publishers, which is not exactly the case here in Finland.
Yeah, and probably when dealing with international repertoire, you don't really own, so when the data needs to flow from several systems, then it's when things start to go wrong, perhaps. And related to that, he asked, how large is data gap? What percentage of data is flowed? If you can say. I don't know, Turo, if you can, maybe it's same answer, similar answer.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. With data gap, I don't mean the amount of unpaid money. I mean information lacking from some specific works or recordings.
Okay. Let me read. The building upon Sertan asks, building upon Turo's comments, the music industry has a long history of not collaborating over stellar projects. Example, global music rights database, which Daniel mentioned. How can you adapt your technology if certain stakeholders, example, the big three, does not participate or try to bring alternative solutions?
Perhaps I can answer that question. That I think that we're in an ecosystem that is very complex. People have lots of different incentives. And I think that if you want people to participate, you have to give them a reason and an incentive to participate. So in my view, it's about having the product be right and attract the right people because it's the right product, not because we are going to people saying this will solve someone else's problem and so you should participate. You know, there's got to be a reason for people to be able to just say selfishly it's worth my while to participate. And so, for example, in our case, that's why in the beginning, Blokur was able to help a publisher, even if it was the first or second or third publisher on the platform, to clean up aspects of its data. Then the publisher starts to participate over time. Well, now the fact that we have large amount of data and we've added millions and millions and millions of songs over the last 12 months, then now everyone starts to get the benefit of everyone else's. Now it's more easy to give the pitch. But I always sort of look back at the question and sort of question the question again when it's a question about why aren't people participating or how are you going to get them to participate, because I think it's our job to make it worth their while to participate. And I think I had read a blog recently about in network effects in general, it's that you've got to make your tool useful to one user, but very valuable when there are lots of users. You know, that's the principle.
I agree. And if I can add to that, Phil, I think the way I look at it through my lens, the faster people get paid, the better it is for them. Who wants to wait 6 months, a year, 2 years for an international collection on a foreign stream, or even 60 days when you could get paid every day? So I kind of look at all the trends that are going on around, mobile finance and digital finance, and we're seeing a tremendous, revolution in a way in terms of the way money moves around. Why can't that move around also for the money related to my copyright and to my rights at the same speed, at the same transparency, at the same access to capital? That at the end of the day, the rights holders, the creators, need faster access to capital. Cash flow has always been, the business and the need, whether it's for record labels and artists. They need advances. They need to get paid. They need to go to the studio. They need to finance their tour. So I'm thinking, why can't we use data to actually accelerate the capitalization, of the creators who make the music? Why are they the first ones to, create the song and the last ones to get paid? I just don't understand that. At the end of the day, I do believe that the technology that's available today, can accelerate those processes. So when we say, how can we get everybody involved? Well, if everyone's getting paid faster, the ones that are not are eventually going to say, I also want to get paid faster.
Sure. Yeah, it starts to connect. No? All the ideas are converging. So all things we have been discussing here kind of make sense all together. I have a technical question here for you, Bruno. It said it's a quick one. It is also possible to use a browser extension like MetaMask instead of the wallet in the mobile.
Yes, it's a Ethereum wallet. The thing you won't get with other Ethereum wallets is just the music industry context of the way we present the information for the digital assets, the way we display rights holders, the way we display all the metadata associated to that digital asset. But yes, you can log in with MetaMask or Dapper or any other Ethereum wallets and basically see your digital assets and its transactions on the blockchain.
Nice. So there's the last question, and I think we're closing it. It was at the beginning. It was Giuseppe Revelator asking what prevents potential copyright trolls to file fake claims, preventing legit owners to register their works. And it was related to the decentralized rights management app. I can probably answer a bit of this, but probably some of you want to participate on that. So our approach was bringing the CMOs first in the system, so they can be like gatekeepers of that. So anyone pushing claims on that are identified by the CMO, and everything is registered in there. Plus, if it's public, we're like disincentivizing bad behaviors. Something similar as what can be happening in YouTube in the CMS where they claim. So we have to find systems. It's not a blockchain thing. It's a workflow thing, and disincentivizing bad behaviors and having reputation mechanisms, which we are experimenting now. I don't know if some of you have been thinking on this topic. How can we desensitize fake claims on the systems?
Well, I think you made a good point when you say the fact that it is public or transparent disincentivizes it, because if it comes to light immediately, then you're not going to get away very long with doing the wrong thing. In our case, it's less of an issue because we're normally dealing with companies for the time being as opposed to individuals, and most discrepancies in claims are due to out-of-date information or poor record keeping or lack of information. They're not due to fraud. Yeah. But we do try to, to design the process and the process for resolving disputes and claims and all of this, so that basically somebody who is legitimate is more likely to win more quickly, basically. And so have to make a fair system that basically, if everyone abides by the rules, then it works out in the right way in the end.
Yeah,
I think one thing that occurs to me is when you start expanding these systems and you end up having systems that are more federated and you can't have the same gatekeepers, then potentially having users policing each other and offering ratings on each other, I think might be a way forward. But obviously you've got to look for gamification there. But I think that's worth experimenting with.
Mm-hmm. I think there's another layer also around digital identity and KYC that is obvious to the crypto networks and blockchain technology. So obviously, when someone uploads content, you can identify, fingerprint it, associate it with that identity, that wallet address or that device address. And if you understand that to be a fraud, then you also understand who the user is and what device they use and so on. So there's a lot more tracking, at a very granular level that plays into the way we handle claims and stuff like that. I think it's a multi-tiered solution. I think fingerprinting is one part of it, digital identity is another part of it, reputation and is another part of it. I think when you put it all together, you start to kind of build a solution where the network effects will kind of regulate itself.
Yeah. So there are no more questions on the pipeline. I don't know if you want to address some words. Any of you of the panelists want to say something that has been left?
This was great.
If not, thank you. I'm very happy to have you all here. I want to thank all the people that have attended the webinar. I hope you have learned things. We shared experiences. You can contact us. We will be happy to connect. And I want to thank you all, Daniel, Turo, Phil, Bruno, and I will pass the floor to, I will give the floor to Tony to close the session.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. On behalf of the Bloomen project, I think that we have enjoyed a lot this webinar, and I hope all the attendants as well. Just to remind you that tomorrow we will also have a very interesting webinar on video streaming, to which I want to invite you to join us and to register. In any case, thank you very much for your attendance and for this very interesting webinar. Thank you and goodbye.